Hey! Excited to have my next guest on the show. It's Myla Hill, who picked up another win, this time at All In Combat 2, a round one standing guillotine choke over Jakeya Keglar. Myla, how are you?
Doing great, doing great. Happy to be here. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. I definitely appreciate the time, and you really are getting a lot of attention, especially after this most recent win. You're actually getting compared to Jon Jones with the submission victory that he had over Lyoto Machida back in the day. Just let's start there. I mean, what is that like to just be 3 fights into your amateur career and getting this type of buzz?
It's definitely an honor. Obviously, Jon Jones is considered to be one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time. So, getting compared to him, that's definitely amazing. But I'm just taking it one day at a time and training and not letting it get to me too much, but having fun with it.
Do you remember when Jones choked out Machida? Because I watched your fight, I watched the replay, and you let your opponent down. I feel like very gently, and Jones just kind of dropped Machida. There was a big difference there, right?
Yeah, a little bit of a difference, a little bit of a difference. I didn't want to drop her on her back or anything while she was unconscious, but she
Yeah,
didn't tap, so
you got to do what you got to do. Well, I mean,
exactly.
third fight, third submission victory. You have to be really just pleased overall with your performance, right? So just break it down for me. Looking back at it, is there anything that you can kind of tweak, or you feel like maybe you could have done better in this most recent fight?
Of course, I looked at the fight, maybe watched it 100 times. There's so much more that I wish I could have done in terms of the striking department. Obviously, the three subs. Obviously, I everybody knows I can sub somebody, but just showing off the other assets of my game, the other parts of my game would have been nice. When we came out, threw a push kick and I kind of fell over, so that's like my big man. Like I can't believe that happened, but just got to go next play, next fight. Hopefully, I'll get to showcase that.
Would you say at this stage of your career that your submission game on the ground, or even, I mean, geez, even standing up, we saw it most recently, that that's the strongest part of your overall game?
Obviously, um, well, I consider myself a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu fighter first and foremost. That's my base and my background, I'd say. Um, but every day I'm working to become a more complete fighter. I think you can't get to the top with just one aspect. I think it definitely helps if you're kind of getting close to mastering that aspect, but every fight, I think I'm getting better everywhere else. So
Did you have a game plan going into this fight? Did you know anything about Jakeya just as a fighter and just specifically, getting ready for this particular opponent?
yeah, so we did a lot of film study. We knew she came from like a karate slash wrestling background, so we were a little bit confused on what exactly she would go with first, whether she would play that distance, that range game, or come in and try to clinch. Obviously, we prepped for both. If you want to clinch, that's my previous fight before this one was also a standing guillotine, so I feel confident and comfortable in the clinch. And then obviously, um, I'm pretty tall for my weight class, or not pretty tall, but pretty long. I have like a 69-inch wingspan for a straw weight, so it's pretty big. So I feel comfortable playing that tit for tat game on the feet too. So I was prepped everywhere, ready and just waiting on what she did, and I'll follow suit.
Now, for anybody that didn't get to see this fight, run me through the finish. How did this present itself? How did you get this victory?
So she, as soon as the bell rang, came out aggressive, more aggressive than we anticipated. I threw a push kick, kind of fell backwards because she came out southpaw. We were anticipating her to come out orthodox. She came out, took me down. It's fine. I'm super comfortable on my back. Kind of was in that butterfly position. Um, was able to get up fairly easily. And then she kind of pushed me towards the cage. And I realized she was pushing me towards the cage, and her head was kind of below my chest where I feel like I can get that reach. And we drill that. I mean, that's and people were calling that at my gym, they call it the guillotine. So I love that move. And if I see it, I'm going to take it. And so just reached around and got it, was able to lock it up and get the finish.
The Hillotine. I love it. Who came
The
up with that?
guillotine. One of my training partners did, and my training partner Jason came up with that. The guillotine or the mylotine. It's both, but
Okay. I
yeah.
love it. That's genius. That's something that you definitely gotta keep going here, moving forward. Obviously, for this most recent promotion that you did fight for, All in Combat, the owner of that promotion is UFC middleweight Brendan Allen, now officially in the top 15. What was it like, competing for this promotion, being able to fight for someone that's really building a name for himself as a professional athlete as well?
It was awesome. My two previous fights were in the state of Florida, where I'm from, so it was cool to venture out and go to Louisiana and the swamp and fight for somebody who's, where I want to be, where I see myself being soon. So super professional organization. It was a pro am card, so I think um, that kind of amped up everybody in the amateurs as well in terms of professionalism. But it was amazing. So blessed to have that opportunity to fight for All In.
Did you get a chance to talk much with Brendan before or afterwards? And if so, what kind of feedback did he give you for someone like you just said? You want to be where he's at some point soon. I'm sure he probably had some thoughts as to where you're at now and just maybe like your overall talent level.
We didn't get to talk too much, but he's definitely been amazing. He sent me a great message after my fight and my win. All of the whole team at All In was super, super amazing, super professional, just amazing. All sent great messages and well wishes. So super blessed for that.
How was the venue and the fans? How did they treat you?
It was great. It was my first fight. This is funny, but my first fight we actually warmed up outside um, in the rain. So Florida in the rain. So the guy just we didn't have a locker room or anything, so we warmed up outside. So it's an inside joke between me and my team. But anything we were inside this time for warm up, so we were like, "What? Like now we get to be inside. We get some mats. It's like wow." So it was awesome. The venue was great. The fans were great. I just wanted to put on a good show for them.
I'm really intrigued how you got into combat sports. So please tell me the story. I'm sure you've been asked this a bunch. How did you fall in love with combat sports? How did you get on this path?
So yeah, growing up, definitely was not into fighting or anything like that. It's funny because I never got in trouble as a kid, never got missed, perfect attendance. I was that type of kid, private school, all that. So when I was like 6 or 7, that show Bully Beatdown, right? On MTV or Spike, one of the two. I remember watching it, and I can remember the episode that I watched. It was Eddie Alvarez, and he was fighting this guy who was maybe 220, 230 of just muscle. And before that, obviously, I thought fighting was just boxing. Like Mayweather was big at that time, watching Mayweather Pacquiao. So he's getting this guy and grappling him and putting him in submissions, and I'm like, I've never seen this before. I want to do that. But at the time, women weren't, in those spaces yet. They were, but they weren't. Me at 6 years old, I wasn't going to see unless I, did a deep dive. So fast forward, I played pretty much every other sport in the sun. I was a basketball player. I'm a little too short for basketball, but it all worked out in the end. Obviously, Ronda Rousey blew up, um, got everybody's attention. And I was like, one day after travel ball, I said, I'm going to quit this and I want to do judo because Ronda Rousey did judo. And my parents were a little confused, but they're always supportive. And they were like, there's no judo in the area, but there's this jujitsu gym, this Gracie Jiu-Jitsu gym. My mom actually trained with my head coach now, John Burke, who's Hoist Gracie's first black belt. And then went in there, first day, meet him, shake his hand, say, I want to fight for him. And he's like, pump the brakes. You got to learn how to grapple first. And so the rest is history.
How did you take to it? Did it take you a little while to, I mean, obviously you're clearly a great athlete, but did it take you a little while to kind of pick up everything, or was there like a bumpy learning process?
Um, my coach, I tell everybody this, my coach, John Burke, I think is the best coach I've ever had in combat sports, especially because he's so detail oriented. and he's almost like a madman when it comes to that stuff. Like he wouldn't let me get away with, you know, certain stuff that I've seen other people get away with, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Like he's so important. He makes it really important to know the details and all the fundamentals and all that stuff. So I'm almost in a position where I couldn't. It couldn't be a bad learning process because it was the information I was given was just amazing.
What did your parents think when they first heard that you wanted to get into combat sports? I know like my mother when I mean I've never actually stepped inside and fought like as an amateur, but I've trained, I've sparred, I've done all that. And my mother was just mortified that you're letting people hit you in the head, honey, and all this stuff. Like I have to imagine that had to have been a difficult initial conversation.
It was, but I think so. I started when I was 17, started grappling. That's when I first started. And I think my parents thought that I was going to use it for self-defense, going to college and after that. And I let them believe that because that let me get in the room. So I remember on my 18th birthday, my dad bought us tickets, me, my two coaches, my coach's wife, and my coach's father, and then my father and me. We went up to Raleigh, North Carolina, to watch the UFC Curtis Blades versus Junior Dos Santos live. And so my dad, looking back on it, tells me the story now. He wanted to take me there to scare me, for me not to, get into it. And he was telling my mom, man, she's going to be so scared. She's not going to want to do this. This isn't going to be for her. And the opposite happened. I was like, I'm hooked. And he kind of shot himself in the foot there, but super supportive after that, but definitely was shocked.
So competing as an athlete, playing like a team sport versus making the walk to a cage to fight. Can you explain the difference of just nerve level, excitement, all of that just as an athlete?
Yeah, team sports, like I grew up playing team sports, so I don't want to say a little bit easier because I never got to the top echelons of team sports, but it's definitely cool to have somebody like to have your back, right away. The nerves are obviously there, but man, fighting in a cage by yourself, there's nobody to blame, and there's you know, nobody to help you. And I think that's why I'm attracted to it. I love just one on one, just seeing who's the better woman at the time. And it's doesn't almost it's not it's nerve wracking, but it's more excitement because I get to showcase what I've been working on with my coaches and my training partners. So it's definitely a different type of nerves versus the team sports, but they're both awesome.
Yeah, no doubt. Right now, if you had to pick, who do you feel like is the best pound for pound female fighter on the planet?
Oh goodness. Female pound for pound. Well, obviously Amanda Nunes. I mean, double champ. Um, Man, that's such a difficult question because there's so many talented female fighters. Man, Chris Cyborg obviously is a legend. Um, I'm a big fan. I'm a big Rose Namajunas fan, so I'm gonna put her in the equation too. Um, Wei Lee, just it's really talented. I struggle because it depends on what you consider, great.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Everyone has their own take. That's for sure. I did see on your Instagram you had some pictures with Nate Diaz, which I love the guy. I'm a huge Diaz fan. If you can't tell behind me, but who?
Yeah.
How did that happen? Tell me how that all came about.
So my coach is a rid OG, I'd call him, but he's actually been doing connecting with Nate Diaz since before that Connor fight. So Nate's been doing seminars at my gym since I want to say 2013 maybe. So they've just always been close, and him and his whole team have always been close to my gym, and obviously to Gracie, he's Caesar Gracie, we're Hoist Gracie, so that kind of connection. And I got to train with him December 2021. Him and his whole kind of team came when his teammate Chris was fighting in Tampa, I believe, and they put on a great seminar. It was awesome, and he actually showed that guillotine in the seminar. I got to tell him I hit the move you showed in the seminar in my fight, and it was pretty awesome. But no, he's great. He's definitely. a legend of the
Mhm.
game. Like him and his brother, the whole Scrap Pack. I love it, but no, it's awesome.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to meet Nate a couple of times. He's a super great guy. Everything that you just said, just a great, great guy, no doubt about it. And he's a legend of the game. I have to ask you too, Myla. Obviously, this is something that I'm sure you get a lot, but it must have been challenging, right? To grow up under the spotlight. Both of your parents are famous, very well known. Your mother's a Canadian singer. Your father, legendary NBA player in the Hall of Fame. What was that like for you to kind of like separate and be your own person? And did you feel, or do you feel any extra pressure, because of the athletic accomplishments that your father, has achieved? Do you feel that to just kind of go in there and really shine and show out in your own game?
Um, I'm fortunate and blessed because my father was actually in the same predicament that I am. My granddad, Super Bowl champ for the Dallas Cowboys, um, and my dad, carved a path. So I think I've seen that you're allowed to go your own way and be who you are and find your own thing. And my parents have always been like, look, you got to find something that you like. You don't have to do anything. I can't sing and I can't really play basketball, so I had to find something else. But I think the one thing in my life that I consider super important to me is upholding my family legacy and upholding my name and representing it accordingly. So, not necessarily pressure from anybody else, but I definitely feel like I'm I'm I come from a long line of people who did amazing things, and I'm capable of doing amazing things as well. So, not necessarily pressure, but I definitely want to represent my name accordingly.
I love that answer. And obviously with your dad's still a co-owner for the Hawks, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so he's ingratiated, still in the NBA. He's doing some commentary. I do see him doing that as well. Are you paying attention to the playoffs right now? I'm from New England. I'm a huge Celtics fan. Again, if you see behind me, a diehard Celtics fan. I grew up being a Boston fan. Do you feel like if you are paying attention, they can come back and win? Give me your prediction of what you feel like is going to transpire here.
So this is I know this is gonna be shocking, but I actually haven't watched basketball in a long time. Since I stopped playing it in 2019, 2018. So I'm like green when it comes to basketball. But my all my teammates are talking about, I guess Miami lost last night or
Mhm.
something. I mean, I know Jason Tatum's a Dookie, so I think I'm obligated to cheer for him and think that he can get through it. But I'm also from Florida, so I don't want any of that Florida smoke. But man, whoever wins it, it'll be great. I know Denver, they beat the Lakers, I think. Um, so if Miami wins, that'll be a completely, different than what everybody was expecting, which is something I love. Uh,
I know this is going to sound blasphemous, right? But I grew up a Tar Heels fan. I know, right? That's we're the bad guys compared to Duke, right? So Jason Tatum, when the Celtics drafted Jason Tatum, I was like, oh God, we drafted a Dookie. I got to cheer for. But you know what? I've come around. This guy is the real deal. I think your father is universally known as the best player to ever come out of Duke and have the best career in the NBA. And I feel like Jason Tatum, what he brings to the table, he might be someone that could, rival what your dad has accomplished. Is that fair to say, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Sure. Yeah, I mean, he's good.
Yeah,
Jason's really good. And
he's
he's
the man.
he's he's from what I know, and obviously my dad knows him better than I do. He's a great guy. So
Mhm.
obviously want to cheer for guys who are great.
Yeah, 100%. He seems like a good human being, no doubt.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
let's transition back to MMA here. Tell me a little bit about your camp. I believe it's 6 levels in Florida. Do I have that right?
Yep, Six Levels Orlando, based 20 minutes right outside of Orlando in a suburb called Winter Garden. Like I said, Jonathan Burke. So he's been doing Gracie Jiu Jitsu for 31 years. He's approaching his 32nd year. Hoist Gracie's first black belt, was right on Hoist Gracie's fight team for a lot of those fights. So just a legend in that realm. And then my striking coach, Ryan Keenan, Bellator vet, World Series of Fighting vet. So I have a lot of knowledge at my camp. I love it. Love my training partners. Love where I'm at. I love Florida. So I don't want to move, but whatever happens, happens.
Do you feel like with the training partners that you have around you right now that you have the right core around to help you, continue to level up for when you do turn pro, you're going to be able to continue to evolve and grow as a mixed martial artist?
Yeah, and my coach, I got to train. Definitely, I feel like my training partners are more than capable of helping me with that evolving um, thing. But I got to train with at the MMA lab with John Crouch. John Crouch and my coach John trained both with hoists and lived together. So I got to train over there with Benson Henderson and Maria Henderson and Jared Cannonier, all those guys over there. So, you know, I'm not afraid to travel and go other places, but I have a home base and I like the home base.
I just interviewed Mario Batista and Mike Hamill recently. Did you get a chance to work with both of those guys?
I got to work with Mike. I didn't get to work with Mario, but he was in the room where we were and I ran into him. But Mike, I got to train with specifically. He's awesome. He's
Yeah,
awesome.
he's a funny guy too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's
Stud though. Talented. That last high kick knockout was crazy. I was cheering all in Orlando. It was crazy. Super talented Jim.
So are you it seems like you're an MMA junkie that you're watching all the fights. Are you watching the Bellator, obviously UFC, PFL? Are you watching as much as you possibly can?
Of course, I want to watch as much, study as much, get as much knowledge as I possibly can. Um, Not necessarily as a fan, but more as somebody who wants to be where they are.
Mhm.
Um, I hate watching fights at sports bars and going out and watch. I just like to watch them in my house and just really pay attention, turn off the volume so I can just watch the fights and see what I can take from them.
And you mentioned your reach earlier, almost 70 inches across. You said you fight at straw weight. I did notice on Tapology that you've also fought at 25 and 35 as well. So is 115 going to be your home moving forward, or will you bounce around? Will you fight at multiple weight classes?
So I'm a 115er. I've never weighed more. I've never broke the scale past 140. I think people think I'm bigger than what I am because of my dad, but I'm really small. um, so the story with the 135 is I was supposed to fight in New York. Um, Got to New York, the girl missed weight by 20 pounds. So they wouldn't sanction the bout. And then I went home, ate my heart away and was like, well, I can't fight now. Like I was supposed to fight, went through a whole camp. Man, like this sucks. My coach found a fight 12 days later, or it was going to be in 12 days at 135. And he's like, do you want to do it? Uh, it's going to be fine. You already had a whole training camp. It'll be good. I was like, you know what? At first, I was like, no, that's too heavy. But I was like, why not try and figure it out? And man, weight makes a difference. That's all I'll say. Weight makes a difference. I was eating so much to just try to keep that weight on, and showed up to the weigh, and I think I was like 3 or 4 pounds under. Um,
Okay.
so, but it was great. I loved it. It was definitely like the hardest fight I've had. My second fight. Um, the girl was like 6'2", ex-basketball player. So yeah, I kind of came in not wanting to lose to a basketball player, but no, it was great. It was great. But 115 is my home. I think I feel most comfortable at 115. I don't mind doing 120 catch weights. I would prefer because, getting used to getting at one down to 115 as an amateur, I'd prefer to get as many of those
Mhm.
as I can in before I go pro, but definitely no more 135. That was an experience. An experience.
Okay, yeah, very well said. So when you do make that cut to 115, how much weight are you typically cutting?
Um, my last, I walk around at like 136, 135, maybe at my heaviest. So it's not too bad.
Mhm.
Like it's not too bad. I actually can put off weight really fast. It's I don't know why, but I actually felt good. I was eating my last fight, the day before, just feeling good. I feel good at that weight. I feel like I could probably cut 10 more. Um,
Wow.
but I think they'd probably have to pay me to do that. I don't think I would do that for free.
Yeah, well, you're one of the lucky ones. I feel like if I look at some pizza or something, I put on 5 pounds. So I have to be very, very careful. Otherwise, I blow right up. You mentioned, eventually, obviously turning pro. Can you run me through that? Where's your head at right now? How many more fights do you feel like you're going to have as an amateur before you do turn professional?
So the state of Florida, you have to have five. I'm sure there's a way to not have five, but you have to have five. And I just turned 21, so I'm super young and I have so much more to learn, so much more to grow. And I'm big on developing and like getting my game to where it needs to be in order to go pro. Because obviously pro will always be there. I'd like to get maybe two more in, maybe three amateur fights. If it was up to me, I'd take as many fights um, as I can. But obviously, once I if I keep finishing them early, then eventually you got to move up um, and go to the pros. But it's definitely becoming harder to find 115 fights, which is a good thing, I guess. But maybe two or three more amateur fights, and I'm still super young, just turned 21, so I'm not even at that prime yet. So it's
Yeah,
exciting.
you got a long way to go. There's no doubt about
Yeah,
that. Very,
yeah.
very bright future. Well, Milo, when you look at just MMA as a whole and the promotions that are out there, obviously the UFC is the top dog, right? But the sport just keeps growing and growing. You have so many other great promotions that you can make a lot of money fighting for. And depending on where your goals are at, some people look at things a little bit differently. If you can get in at Bellator or PFL, you can make more money than you could maybe initially in the UFC. Do you feel like you just want to work your way and just get to the UFC? That's where the best competition is. That's where you want to be. Or does that matter to you when you do look forward to turning pro? Just run me through your mindset as far as that goes.
Well, like I said earlier, I'm in this to represent my family name. So I guess I'd say that I'm in this for legacy. And obviously, when you look at the roster in the UFC, when you mention MMA, a lot of people think UFC. So to me, I think when you consider yourself the best, which is where I want to be the best. I think you consider the UFC immediately. I would be more than blessed and happy to fight in any other promotion, but I'm not in it for money. I'm fighting for free right now, so anything more than free would be cool with me. But I'm not in it for money. I'm in it for legacy. So when it's all said and done, I want to look back and have that legacy. And I think the UFC um, right now is the premier promotion for that legacy.
Where do you see yourself 2 years from now, 5 years from now? How long do you think it's going to take before we do see you make your UFC debut?
Oh, I don't know. I see myself in 2 years, 5 years. I see myself training. I just see myself put my head down and training what I've been doing this whole time. Um, if it happens that quick, obviously I'd be blessed, and I feel like if I get to that point, when I get to that point, I'll be more than ready for it because I just put my head down training. But 2 years, I hope I don't know. Just training and working.
Okay. I love that answer. Last question for me, Myla. As far as your next fight goes, obviously you said a couple more as an amateur. Give me a time frame of when you'd like to step back in there. And is there a promotion that you feel like makes the most sense for your next fight? Would you like to fight again for All In Combat?
You know, I have no idea when my next fight's gonna be. Um, obviously my two early other fights were kind of a year out from each other, so I'd like to be way more active than that. I'd like to get maybe two in this year, two more in. I had a bunch of promotions reach out to me, wanting me to fight for them, which I'm so happy and blessed about. And I'll take, I couldn't find fights, and now I got posted, and now I can find fights. So I'm like, this is great. I'm hoping to make a couple trips this summer to train, uh, get some more experience, learn from some more people. But I have no inclination right now of where I want to go, where I want to fight. But you'll definitely hear about it when it's about to happen.
Okay, sounds good. I do the commentary for a couple of MMA promotions up here in New England, and you can be sure
Oh
I'm going to
yeah.
be mentioning your name because I would
Oh,
love to get you up here to fight in New England and
I'd
call one
love
of your
to.
fights. That would be amazing.
Yes, yes. I'm thinking about all the lobster rolls and pizza and stuff I can have after the fight up there. So of course.
Absolutely, Mila. It's been a pleasure talking to you here for the first time today.
Yeah.
Before we do sign off, I want to give you the floor. Please tell people where they can follow you on social media. If you have anything to plug, anyone to thank, sponsors to thank, the floor is yours.
So my Instagram and my Twitter are the same, Myla Hill. My TikTok account is Myla Hill MMA. I want to give a shout out to my coaches at Six Levels, my training partners at Six Levels, my fitness coach, VFit Athletics, my wellness center place, New Dimensions Wellness, and my sleep coach, Thomas Hinton, TH Sleep Coach on Instagram. Lastly, I want to give a huge shout out to my family, my mom, my dad, my sister. I wouldn't be anything without them. So thank you so much for having me.